All right, so for the last 10 years or so, people are finding Chris Reeve knives and they want to know which one to get. There's always that dilemma. What's the entry into Chris Reeve knives? Is it going to be the classic Sebenza, or is it going to be the kind of more interesting Umnumzaan, or are we going to go with the newest and bigger Inkosi? So this is a question that is asked a lot, and I've asked this question a lot, and I was very curious about this before I got to handle them. Now, of course, we have a small Sebenza and a large Inkosi. I have had a large Sebenza and I have had a small Inkosi, and this is my first foray with the Umnumzaan. Now, I would say that the large Sebenzas are great. They're classic. They are very similarly sized length with the Inkosi, but they are a little bit thinner. Now, the small Inkosis are one I would just steer clear of entirely. They're smaller than the small Sebenza, and they're not as easy to operate in the hand. I think if you're going to go with the small Chris Reeve, rule out the small Inkosi. That's just my personal opinion. It might not be yours, but if you're here looking for that advice, that is mine regarding that. Now, I will say with any of these, including the large Sebenza, you can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong with them. And there are some minor differences that you may or may prefer one over the other. So let's go ahead and start with the small Sebenza. So the Sebenza is the slimmest of the three, and it's going to be the sliciest blade. I believe that's the case with the large Sebenza as well. The large Sebenza and small Sebenza are both thinner than the large and small Inkosis. Now, this one does have the bushing construction. So there's a bushing around the pivot screw that allows it to be exactly as tight as it needs to be. So there isn't a lot of fiddling around and tuning with the Sebenza. You kind of put it together, tighten it down, and it just stops. There's not a lot of like moving room. You'd really have to torque on it to get it to go further, and you don't want to do that. But you kind of just feel it dead end into that bushing. And so it's just all going to be tuned exactly the way it's going to be. And that's going to break in over time. You probably won't be able to flick your Sebenza right away. You could probably polish the washers up a little bit, and that could help a good bit actually, and get you more of a tunable action. Now, no Chris Reeve knives are very drop shut. You can if you kind of swing them closed, or if you got them like really smooth, but you know, they're never going to be like that out of the box, and chances are they're not going to be flicking very easily out of the box either. But that's not why you get a Chris Reeve knife. These are some of the most well-built knives out there. Chris Reeve knives were the first to have an frame lock, or they used to call it a Reeve integral lock. I think sometimes they still do. They pioneered a lot of the knife steels. I believe S30V was originally developed by Chris Reeve knives. That was like the first knife. That was the first steel like designed specifically for pocket knives, and they started that. So they are great trendsetters in the industry, and they are some of the originators for what we kind of take for granted as common in the knife industry today. Tolerances is a big one as well. Way more common today, but they were the first people to really dial those in for a very solid, well-built knife. The small Inkosi, small Sebenza. The small Sebenza we have here is one of my absolute favorite carries of all, just for like a kind of more subtle, discreet, not, it's more than a gentleman's carry, but it's not flashy, it's not flicking out. I can flick mine, but you can very well slow roll them as well. And it's going to be solid and take anything you want to throw at it. Of course, we've got that nice crown spine, the hollow grind, and great access to the lock bar. These are great little knives, and they're perfect sized for a smaller knife. Now we've got let's see, just over 6, probably 7 inches overall, and we are looking at should know this off the top of my head. Just about 3-inch blade. Looking at just about a 3-inch blade from the point that the scale's in there. I'm not backing it all the way out, but it's right around a 3-inch blade on that one. Great smaller carry. Now, how does the Inkosi really differ from the Sebenza? Well, the small Inkosi, the way the thumb studs are situated with it, it's a smaller package. They're not really the best to operate. So I do like the large Inkosis much better than the small Inkosis. And if I want a large knife, I want it to be a little more stout. I want to have something that is going to be a really great heavy use knife. And it has a little bit thicker blade stock than the Sebenza. So that's why I went with a large Inkosi. I think if you want a large, hefty, hard use knife, go for the large Inkosi. If you want something smaller and a little more discreet, go with a small Sebenza. The large Sebenza is great, but my feeling is if I want to go for a larger knife, I kind of want the heftier option of the two that I can really be kind of, if it's going to be my end of the world knife, so to say, this is going to be the one I'm going to grab. Ergonomically, they are a little bit different as well. We can see this one has the kind of finger grooves with some perfect ergonomics for me. I mean, this thing just melts in the hand for me personally. The Sebenzas are plenty comfortable as well. You just don't get those extra grooves for that finger grip. The Inkosi also does not have the bushing design. You just have a barrel pivot and a screw that goes in the other side. So they are more tunable. It is much easier to get a flicking action on an Inkosi than a Sebenza because you can back out that pivot a little bit and they still stay perfectly centered. They stay rock solid when you have a little bit of give on that pivot to be able to get a nice flick out of it. So if you kind of want, that's something that a lot of people are interested in, is having a knife that can be flicked a little bit easier. That is important to some people. Nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want, that's what you want to pay for in a knife. Don't let anybody tell you that that's what you shouldn't go for. If that's what you're looking for, go for the Inkosi over the Sebenza. This also has a floating, I say floating, it's the way it's screwed in on the clip side and on the show side, that's just an open hole and it just comes right off of that. The stop pin is not fixed in that position. So you got two screws to be able to pull the face off of that. So the show side scale. So very, very simple construction on these. Now, the Zaan, the Umnumzaan, the kind of the most different from the other two. This one does not have a bushing construction like the Sebenza. It's got just the barrel and the screw like the Inkosi, but it is thinner than the Inkosi. The thickness of it overall and the thickness of the blade is closer to that of the Sebenza than the Inkosi. The Inkosi is the thickest one of all. Now, because they have that deep hollow grind, they all make for some really nice slicing action. This particular Zaan is the Tanto. The traditional drop point blade does have a little bit of a more harpoon going on with it. But the visual differences on this one are immediately more apparent than the others. We've got this crosshatch pattern here, which adds for some nice grip, and we've got some external stop pins. The thumb studs act as the external stop pin, so this one has a very simple, just two screw construction as well. Very easy disassembly on all of these, really. This one, the clip lines up with the lock bar, which is not the case with either of these two. So with that, you have to be mindful about where you're pressing when you unlock the knife, because if you're just pushing on that lock bar, well, you're going to be fighting yourself if you're trying to unlock it. So if you're pushing on the clip, you're going to be fighting yourself trying to get it unlocked. Not really an issue, not a big issue, but just something that I noticed when I first started using it. It is very easy to just be mindful of that. The lock bar access is very different on the Zaan compared to the Inkosi and the Sebenza. We can see that we have this little lip that comes out here. You can get your pad of your thumb right on that, and it is a very easy unlock. I've talked about Umnumzaan in some previous videos, where if you really just get the tip of your thumb on that and just are forcing on it too much, it might start hurting your thumb after a day. You get used to it, or you just learn how to use it properly. So we have a little less access on the Inkosi and a little more access on the Sebenza. I feel like this is the perfect in-between. On the Inkosi, you have plenty of real estate to get in there with that. The Zaans, it's not my favorite just because you have to be mindful of it, but it's not an issue. Don't let that that be the only reason you don't go for the Zaan. Ergonomically, they are very different as well. So this kind of area here above the lock bar kind of acts like the spot for your finger, and you get a little bit more of a choke up closer to the blade the way that it is ergonomically there. You see there's a little more distance between the scale and the blade on the Inkosi. Not too much, it's pretty inconsequential, but you do get a little bit of a closer grip to it there. The chamfering on it is very different as well. The Inkosi is a little more blocky. It's just kind of got a rounded edge there to where we can see that the Zaan is a little more blocky. Just a little bit of rounded edge where we see that the Inkosi has it knocked down a little bit more. So it's kind of just, it's flattened that corner a little bit more to make it a little more chamfered. The Sebenza is a little bit somewhere in between. It's also knocked down, but not as much as the Inkosi, but the Zaan, none at all. The opening of them. So we can tune them all to be flicked. And you kind of just have to, you don't think about it, you can just flick it open like that, and you can do a middle finger flick with both of them. Now, the Sebenzas, not all of them come with dual-sided thumb studs. Standard for the Sebenza is just a thumb stud on the show side scale. So the standard build does not have a thumb stud on the lock side. So don't count on always being able to do a finger flick if that's the version that you buy, or make sure it specifically says whether it has that or not. Of course, the Inkosi or the Umnumzaan does have it on both sides because it doubles as the stop pin and the open and close position. The Zaan also is the only one of the three to have a lock bar over travel stop. And that's not something, it's a nice little detail to have, but I've never had an issue not having an over travel stop. The pocket clips are all just about the same functionally. We've got the little indent here and it comes out. I like the way that they work. They do stick out a good little bit. And some people say it's a hot spot. I haven't had any problems with it. I love the way they function in and out of the pocket. The opening. Oh, we also have the glass break on the Zaan as well, which is a nice little additional detail there. You probably won't be able to flick the Zaan right out of the box. This is one that will probably need some tuning as well. You probably have to slow roll it, and because you don't really have real estate to get up this way, you have to do it from the blade, and you kind of have to push straight up. It is a motion that you may have to get used to, and you can get used to it. Plenty of people can just get used to it, break in a little bit, and they flick right open. The first time I handled a brand new one that was not broken in, I was kind of like, what is going on? You're just pushing, you're like, what the heck is happening here? But once you figure it out, you could do it with ease. Now, you can't always get a middle finger flick on this one. I wouldn't count on being able to do a middle finger flick with it. I'm sure someone out there can. I think if I really, there we go. But the Zaan, I'll say, of the three, appears to be the most popular. Regardless of my opinions on it. If you want the aftermarket's opinion on it, I don't know if it's just that they make less of it, so there's more of a supply and demand thing going on, but whenever these pop up on sale on the secondary market for what they go for new, at least like between $450, $550 for just like standard builds, they're gone usually within seconds. They never last. People eat them up, and no hate on the Zaan, but I don't know why. I much prefer the large Inkosi for a larger build of the two. I mean, the difference is just the little things about it with the clip and the lock bar and the thumb studs. Like, I get it. It's a great knife. You can't go wrong with it, and it is excellent. But I mean, is it that much more better than a large Sebenza or large Inkosi? I don't know. I mean, it does have the harpoon. I love a good harpoon. I wish this one was the drop point so I could really show that harpoon. I mean, hell, maybe it's just for the cool harpoon blade alone. If there was one reason I'd go for the Zaan over that, it would be the harpoon with the drop point blade. But my favorites of these, I'm going to put the Zaan in the last place out of these three for me. But it kind of changes between these. If I want a large carry, I'm going with the Inkosi. If I want a small, I'm going with the Sebenza. I've once said that if I had to pick a single knife that would replace all my other knives, and this was the only knife I carried for the rest of my life, it would be a small Sebenza. It's big enough to do everything I need it to do, and it's small enough to always be discreet and be appropriate to carry in any situation. Now, if I was going to have a knife for the end of the world where there was an apocalypse scenario and I just had to grab one on the way out, out, I'd grab a fixed blade, but if I'm going to grab a folder to bring with me as well, I'm going to get the large Inkosi. This thing is built like a tank. It's nice and hefty and heavy. We got enough thickness on the blade. We've got enough of a belly to have some life of it. It's going to survive a lot of sharpenings with that hollow grind and still be plenty useful. All Magnacut blades. The Inkosi probably, I would say if you're wanting a big knife, big hefty knife, get the Inkosi. If you're wanting a good small knife for the Chris Reeves, get a small Sebenza. If you're a madman and want the most interesting knife, go with the Umnumzaan. My final actual real result with this, or final testament that I can say with these, if you're curious of which one to get, is that it doesn't matter. These are all fantastic knives. You can't really go wrong with any of these. If you get a Zaan and you hate the action and you're not a fan of it, I'm sure there are people that would happily quickly trade to trade you out for an Inkosi or something like that, or you could drop it on the secondary market easily, no problem. They're all definitely worth trying. If you're unsure about the Zaan, but that's the one you're looking for the most, try it. Try it out. It is interesting. It's different than the other two. This is the one that kind of stands out the most, but practically these two are my favorites. So I hope you enjoyed my breakdown of the popular of the Chris Reeve knives. Thank you for watching. Special thanks to Ray from WeBuyKnifeCollections.com for letting me take a look at this Umnumzaan. This is from his collection. So if you're into high-ends and custom, see what he's got over at WeBuyKnifeCollections.com. Thank you.